private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to
Go
socialist. You're
ahead.
going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
now. I am,
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me about this.
I'm happy to talk about this.
And if you were here,
Look,
it wouldn't be
here's the deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President,
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're not
Mr. President, as the moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's
begun.
on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the ballot?
said
It's not on the ballot.
it's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And
just
you don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right, let's talk.
Think so?
In the
We got a lot to
court.
unpack
there's
here,
nothing
gentlemen. We got a lot of
happening
time. So,
Donald, would
And
you
you
just
don't.
on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give you good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual
I'm
mandate.
going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
Obamacare.
plan.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The
no,
individual mandate was the most unpopular
Mr. Vice
aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare. I got
President,
rid of it.
I'd like
and
you
we
to,
will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin.
health
I give
care.
you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact,
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big.
you'll
This
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the Vice President, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will, I can
sorry.
ask you the question. It will
Not what your
end.
party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie
Number-
Sanders, who's
I
far
did-
left, on the manifesto,
When
we
you-
call it.
when
And that gives
manifesto-
you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you
I'm
saying
not
you
going to
didn't
listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not by
here
much.
standing facing you, buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2 days
I tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
all he knows how to
I'm
do
sure the
is
Democratic
Tuesday.
Party
You guys
doesn't
are very
have
Here's the
regret,
deal.
Joe. I'm sure the Democratic Party does not regret.
Tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agreed.
want
Joe,
to make sure.
Joe.
You're the
I want to make.
Last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him
You've got a
finish?
He
pathologically
doesn't know how to
lying
do that.
liberal media.
He has.
You'd be surprised.
Joe,
you
come
pick
on.
Be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go,
the
go,
wrong
Joe,
night at
go.
the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let
Now you're
him-
disavowing it.
There is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You
Yeah.
agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
that's absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you
to,
have
and
any
under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
you
Medicare,
have any
President.
do?
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President,
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care.
That's not true at all,
his-
Joe.
Because he, in fact, already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers
Joe,
because of his recession.
the economy.
Number one. Number two,
yeah.
It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy.
care now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give
Number
them better
three.
health care at a
But-
much lower price
But-
because
and by the way,
Obamacare
he doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't. Obamacare
gentlemen, you realize
is no
if you're
good,
both
Joe.
speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the President, go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is, and that destroyed. That they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well, or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And I
known for.
just had a meeting with them. They said the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what
So
his people say.
we do want to
No,
get
no,
rid of it.
it's
Chris,
an
we
open
want to get
discussion.
rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir,
something
but I
that's
have to
cheaper
give
and
you
better.
roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the Vice President talk.
Good.
There is
He
so
has no plan for health
many.
care.
Of course we do.
There's so many states
please,
where like
sends out
the
wishful
marketplace.
thinking. He has executive orders that have no
but the
power.
marketplace only
he
has, like,
hasn't
one
lowered drug
plan.
costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan.
I mean,
since he got
Obamacare is doing
elected. He
exactly
has not.
what it's-
like
what it was
almost
intended to
everything
do.
else he talks about. He
Like,
does not have a plan.
disrupt and
He doesn't have a
dismantle the
plan.
American
And the fact
healthcare
is, this man
insurance
doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right,
He's
I have, one,
industry,
I have one final
so that you
question
have
for
no
you,
choice but socialized
Mr. Vice
medicine.
President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go
don't know if
ahead
this is really gonna
and
work.
confirm Justice Barrett,
Mostly
there has
because,
been talk about ending the filibuster
just can't
or even
pay
packing
attention
the
to two
court,
people talking
adding
at the
to
same
the
time.
9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how
you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel.
court?
I got a fire sale of
Vote
votes.
now.
Democrats
You're
get
gonna
two,
pack
two for
you,
one.
In fact, let people
Democrats
know
get two for
your
one.
senators I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
You wanna
is
put a lot of
the question
Supreme Court
is
judges,
the
radical
question.
left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so.
list?
All right, gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's gonna pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have
What is
ended-
unprecedental
we have
about it,
ended
Joe?
this
Like,
segment.
oh
We're
my
gonna move on to
God,
the second
dude.
segment.
That was really a productive segment.
Oh
wasn't
my God.
it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They should.
47 years.
How are you
you've
going to
done
fucking
nothing. They
handle
understand.
China?
All right. The second subject is COVID-19. It is an awfully serious subject, so let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead.
What do you mean, good
You
luck?
said over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact,
What do you mean, good
have
luck?
5%, 4% of the world's
What the fuck?
population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease.
I knew in
What did
December,
he do?
technically, because
He's on tape, is acknowledging.
I read that
he knew.
news story on
He
December
said he didn't
31st.
tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. He
Joe.
didn't panic. He panicked. In
Joe.
addition to that, what did he do? He
Joe.
went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous
Does anybody
this
actually
was.
buy that shit?
He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
So, Joe, are you mad at
Back in
are you mad
March,
at the World Health
exactly
Organization
what
or
we
not?
should be doing. And I
You
laid
are not
out
gonna call the
again
World
in
Health
July
Organization
what
to
we should be
task.
doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot
And
of money.
why
You should get out of your bunker and get
is
out of the
our
sand trap
manufacturing
and get
base
in your
in
golf course
China,
and go in the
Joe?
Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
Okay,
So if we would have listened to
You
you,
have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what
Yeah,
we've
exactly.
done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should
unrelated
have
to
closed
your
our country.
COVID.
No, just
Wait a
start.
minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump
Make
did a
sure you wear your
phenomenal
mask
job.
when you go
We
out
did.
there and
We
protest.
got the gowns, we got the masks, we made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators, and now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press, they give me bad press, because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you
done.
didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There was
point.
far
now.
less
there was no
lethal
recession.
disease,
You made a
by the way.
point. Let him answer.
And there was no one, we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you and had an empty chair at the kitchen table?
Oh my God,
because
dude.
someone died of COVID?
So Joe,
How
why did
many
you
of
flip
you
flop
were
on
in a
fracking?
situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to the
I
head
cannot
nurse holding
stand
the
a
phone
lack of
so you could
consistency.
in fact say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
That
Far
is-
more people.
And,
You would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were
his
months behind me, Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way,
Yeah,
in
no, we
terms
should have
of
been.
the
I knew
whole
that we should be
notion of
wearing a mask
vaccine, we're for a
before
vaccine, but
the
we- I don't
fucking
trust him at all.
epidemic
Where do
ever
you- I know you
happened.
don't. What we
I
trust is a
realized
scientist.
why
We trust Dr. Fauci.
Asian people
Pfizer.
wore the mask for
And by
SARS.
the way,
Gentlemen,
It took me a
gentlemen,
couple
let me-
years,
let me
but I
move on
finally
to
figured it out.
questions
It
about the
reduces
future,
the
'cause you
total
both
number
touched
of
on one
viruses
the-
that you
two of the questions I'm going to
emanate
ask.
or emit into
Focusing
the
on the future
environment.
first, President Trump,
Like,
you have
it works.
repeatedly
Our
either
own
contradicted
government
or been
did
at
not
odds
know
with
that
some
it
of your
worked.
government's own top scientists. The
Allegedly.
week before last, the head of the Centers for
Like,
Disease
yeah,
Control, Dr.
the
Redfield,
masks
said
work,
it would
but
be
you know what?
summer
It's a little
before
too late
the
for that.
vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui,
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I
And
disagree
there will
with
only
both of them. And he
there
didn't
will
say
only
that.
be
He
like
said it
10
could
to
be there,
20
but it could also
million
be much sooner.
doses.
I had him in my
like,
office 2 days ago.
He talked about
by the end of
summer,
October
sir, before it's
anyways.
generally available.
We are
He said
making
it's
the
a
vaccine.
possibility that we'll have
When we
the answer
release the vaccine,
before
people will
November
have it,
1st.
but
It could
not
also
everyone
be
will
after
have
that.
it. The
Generally
people that need
available,
it
not
will
Well,
get
we're
it.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all
Yeah,
set
exactly.
up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is
delivering
the
the
same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by
Joe,
Easter
are you
this would be
fucking
gone
kidding
away.
me?
By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically,
That was
and you
him-
know that.
I-
that
I-
was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine.
Wow.
And
Did
pray
somebody
God
tell
we
you that?
will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying you
Everybody
can't, or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying you
no,
can't trust the
No,
scientists.
well, no, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She
the
said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be
Yes.
suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists. There's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci,
scientists that are in
and
charge.
By the way,
they will have
and
the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole
Oh
issue
my God,
relating
dude.
to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died. And a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President.
So what is the Dow Jones?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years, you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if
We'll
you
see
would have
who's
had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge.
Well, apparently,
of
Joe,
what
you
I
couldn't
was
figure
put
out that
through,
you
I had to
should have
close
dropped
the
out.
greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast. I look
Okay.
forward to talking.
When it comes to how
Yeah, I mean,
the
it's
virus
it's
has been
amazing that
handled
the
so
economy
far,
did not
the
collapse.
two of you have taken very different approaches,
Like
and
that
this is
in
going
it,
to
like,
affect
by itself
how the
is-
virus
it's
is
amazing.
handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've
Well,
got
what
to
is the plan,
provide
buddy?
these businesses the ability
Is
to
the
have
plan
the
you
money
just
to be able
fucking
to reopen with the PPE as
sit
well
back
as
and play
with
armchair
the sanitation
quarterback?
they need. You have to
Backseat
provide
driver?
domestic
Is that what you do? You
Okay?
play backseat driver from your
Please
basement?
just shush for a minute.
Tell it to
See,
Nancy
the-
Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the
Okay.
Senate.
But-
And he sits on his golf course and I mean literally think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country.
Oh.
And I want to keep it open. And we
You
did
ju-
a
he
great
just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe.
What would
just
you
for
have
1
done,
second.
Joe?
He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot.
Yeah, they
Young
need the vaccine
children
first.
aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on
yeah.
November
I want to
3rd.
move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
thing.
another
I've
subject.
got to
But
respond.
those,
I
but
wanna
those
move-
states,
gentlemen, I
those
wanna move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants
President
to shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks are
efficacy
okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice
this.
President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said the opposite.
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said- well, look
serious.
all right, I
Look
wanna
at
ask
Dr.
you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a
Said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he
Yeah,
changed his mind.
exactly.
He said masks are good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
Exactly.
I want
I'm
to ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have
Joe.
campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands
His
of
facial
people
expressions are for Democrats.
outside. Yes, sir. Agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
What's
Wait.
true? Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 25, 35,000 people show up at airports We use airports.
Are you
and
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issue,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a lot.
and
There's
literally
less
on
people
24 hours
spending time
notice.
together
And Joe does the circles and
for
has
Trump
three people
rallies than there were
someplace.
for
Okay.
By the way,
protests.
did you see
Yes,
the,
sir.
one of the
Like
last
there's
rallies he
far
had?
less social
And a
flux.
reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, 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 stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm
Where's your mask,
I'm
Joe?
way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no
or
negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've
Come
had
on.
no negative effect. And we've had 35, 40,000
All right.
people
You want
at these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraged them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen? Can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much
This-
faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week, you saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance, they can wash their hands, they can wear masks, they can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors
Oh,
are
no,
under
but this
siege,
genome is suspect as
Pennsylvania,
hell.
Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost, it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion
I'll be right back.
because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in
wrong.
taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's his
the
two.
wrong
Yeah,
statement.
I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in a way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he?
Well, what are
take
you
care
gonna
of
do,
the
Joe? Are you ever
can't
gonna be
fix the
consistent?
economy until you fix the COVID crisis.
Holy shit,
and he has
dude.
no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give
I'm
the
all
teachers
about
and school
experimenting
students
with
masks.
education
And then
right
they
now,
decided,
because
no,
our
couldn't do
own
that because it's not a
education is so
national
unbelievably
emergency,
broken.
not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right, your time is up, sir. We are going to get to.
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives.
People
They'll
want
be
to be
careful,
safe.
but they want their schools open.
People want
I'm
to
the
be
one that
safe.
brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
people of
let's-
Ohio are very proud of me. And you know
We're
how
going to
I
get
found
back,
out? When you took a
gentlemen,
phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars
Yeah.
in taxes, millions of dollars.
It's
in
so
income
it's
tax.
so
And let me
unbelievable
just
that
tell you,
Democrats
there was a story in one of the papers.
can
that
assume
tax.
I
that
paid
most
$38 million
Americans are
1 year. I paid
are
$27
tax
million
illiterate.
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally
Yeah.
under
I
leveraged
mean, why don't you do
because
that,
the
Joe?
assets are extremely good, and we have a very, I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific question, which
But
is...
let me tell you-
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand all
returns.
of
Joe,
that.
you,
I'm
you
asking-
probably
no,
shouldn't
Mr.
smile like
President,
that when
I'm asking
you're
you a question.
retarded.
Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes
It like
in
indicates how
2016 and
stupid you think the
2017?
American people
Millions
are.
of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to
When?
see it. But let me just
Inshallah?
tell you, Chris. Let me just tell you something. That it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build the building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired
no,
right after that happened. But
Vice
that's
President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax
Okay.
cuts. And
That
make
doesn't
sure
have
we
anything to
invest
do
in
with
the people
getting
who, in
deductions,
fact,
dumbass.
need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you
Ask
do it
him-
over the last 25
no,
years?
That has
Because
very
you
little
were
to
Why
do.
did you do it over
Because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years?
Tax
screwing things up.
cuts.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe.
He's
I've done more in
The president
in
that we need
47
right now,
months.
and
I've
he's
done more
doing
than
a
you've done in
fantastic
47
job.
years, Joe. We've done
Yeah, with
things
all
that you
these
never
fucking
even
people,
thought
all
of
this,
doing,
the
including
fucking
fixing the
liberal
broken
media
military that you gave
dogpiling
me,
in.
including taking care
We're
of your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company
But respectfully,
in America.
sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate
He
significant number of
doesn't
taxes.
really know
I'm
the
going to make
difference. He's a Democrat.
the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it
Billions
before
of
when
dollars.
you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
That's right.
your
I got
tax
it.
proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
you got
That's
it.
right. You heard it here, folks.
And
Trump
that's
invented
inevitable. The
taxes.
economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's
Oh
you
my
talk about
God.
the economy booming, it turns out that
Democrats
in Obama's
do not
final 3
recognize
years
what
as president,
tax
more jobs
revenue
were
is.
created, 1.5 million
Like,
more
holy
jobs
shit.
than in the first 3
You
years
cannot
of
simply
your
tax the
presidency.
rich.
They had
There's
the
just not enough
slowest
money.
recovery since
They
19
do not
economic
actually have as
recovery
much money
since
as you think they do.
1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes,
People
I'll tell
need
you
to
what,
share
you'll
wealth
lose
by
half of the
investing
companies that
in
have
the
poured
stock
in here
market.
will leave, and plenty
Half
of
of the
companies that are
companies-
already here, they'll leave
hardly
for
any
other
companies
places.
have-
They
Yeah.
will leave, and you will have a
Have it.
depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look,
Yeah,
we
no,
inherited
exactly. That is
the
exactly
worst
what will happen.
recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created
Holy
the jobs you're
shit.
talking about. We
Do you
handed
know
him
why
a
the stock
booming
market nearly
economy.
doubled
He
when Trump
blew
became
it.
president?
He blew it.
It's because they
It wasn't
removed
booming.
all
It
of the
was the
regulations
weakest recovery
and all of the
since
cruft
Is it
that the
fair to-
Obama
is it fair to say
administration
he blew it when,
labored the
in fact,
fucking
when-
economy with.
when there was record low unemployment
Yeah.
before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went
Oh,
in the
it
hole.
didn't?
Number
Excuse me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number
That's
three.
just not
It
even.
would take, no, you're number two.
No.
Chris, they said it would
This
take a
guy's-
miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of
not
my
agree with that.
standard fare.
I'm the guy
He
that brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile industry.
manufacturing.
All right, let him.
We brought back, I was asked to bring back.
You mean the Federal
Freshman
Reserve
General
brought back
Motors.
the
We brought 'em back
automobile
right here in the
industry,
state of
right?
Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year.
Have you ever heard of
Michigan
a little
had
company
best
called
year they've
Tesla?
ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to
Yeah, they
Michigan,
did.
went to Ohio.
Yeah, they did.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice
You know why?
President.
Because,
And so you take a look at what he's actually done.
oh God,
He's done very little.
It's because of
His
Trump's
trade
economic
deals
policy.
are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals.
there's
he
all
talks
kinds of
about the art
companies
the
that are
deal.
that are
China's
making
made
manufacturing
the art
plants
of
in
the
America
steel.
to avoid
We
tariffs.
have a higher deficit with China now than
I
we
don't know
did
that
before.
applies to
We have the
European car
highest trade
manufacturers, but-
deficit
China
with
ate your
Mexico.
lunch
All
down
right, gentlemen.
18%.
Yeah, no, that's a
China
good.
ate your
A
lunch
trade
down.
deficit
And
is
no
a good
wonder your
thing
son goes
if
in
it's
and
with
he takes
Mexico.
out-
It's a
he
great
takes out
thing. That's
billions
great for
of dollars,
Mexico.
Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also,
Simply
while we're
not
at it,
true.
why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million.
That's
What
not
did he
true.
do to deserve it?
That
What do you mean
did
it's
he
not
do
true?
with Burisma
None
to
of that
deserve
is
$183,000?
Oh my God.
None of that is true.
Can he actually
None-
expect
none of
his
that is
his
true.
Oh, really?
his
Totally
But no,
$3.5 million?
Mr. President,
Democratic base to
Mr.
believe that?
President, please.
Totally
ask the question.
discredited. totally discredited. And by the way,
Well, wait, he
let's
didn't get
talk-
$3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
He got
Mr.
$3.5 million.
President,
that is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr.
Oh,
President,
but, Mr.
it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
It's a fact.
Well,
There's- it
you
is
have
not a
raised an
fact.
issue. Let the
It's been
Vice
totally
President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay him
report.
I'd rather watch
$183,000
Biden squirm.
with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
and
Mr.
the only
President,
guy that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His
No.
position has been totally, thoroughly.
If you got the truth, Drew,
and
let's hear it.
by
It's
everybody.
that
Well,
it's that
by
simple,
the media,
buddy.
By our allies, by the World Bank, by
You're dodging.
by
Why are you
everyone
dodging right
is
now?
discredited. Matter of fact, even the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
under
ask you
oath,
this,
Henry,
Joe.
under
No,
oath,
go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to
even the
you.
people under,
He got $3.5
he
million from
testified,
Moscow.
he testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like to know
honorably.
who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't
Well,
do a good
here's
job.
the,
With you,
Go
they
ahead.
say
You
that.
get
here's the
wait a
deal.
minute. You get the final word, Mr.
well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown.
He
Excuse me,
fired.
this-
He fired the Leninists
No, no,
and
no,
all of their
Mr.
fucking
President,
useful
why did he
idiots.
have to-
Million, Joe.
That is simply
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics.
Oh my God, dude.
I don't want to do that. I mean, his family, we could talk about all night. His family's
Whoa.
already
Family,
No,
It's-
let him go.
my family
Already
lost
wrote
a fortune by coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
Yeah.
they're right
That's
here.
it, Mr.
That's
President.
such a
Every
great.
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your
If Trump
family.
makes one
And
mistake,
America
he's
made
done.
He doesn't. That's
If
not true.
Democrats
He doesn't
make
want to
1,000
talk
mistakes,
about
they keep
what
going.
You need you, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about
you
here.
should
All right, that's
Not
the,
about
end of
here.
that's the end of the segment. We're
What do you
moving
mean?
on.
What do you mean you can't answer that question?
No,
Can I be honest? It's a very
Yeah.
important
Be
question.
honest.
No,
He
it's
stood up.
no.
He stood up.
The answer
He
to the
just-
question is no.
Ukraine.
He just
Sir,
lied.
$1,000,000 if you
That
get rid of
is
the press.
absolutely
You know what?
not
Stop.
true.
Tape doing it.
You're going to
Not
have
tape.
True.
gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice. but
This would be a great time to
why should
end
I
the
be different
debate
than the two of you? So here's the deal.
because everybody's
We
going to have to
have
live with
5
why
seconds.
it
We
ended
ended
because
that segment.
Biden could
We're
not
going to go to the
fucking
next
answer a
segment. In that
goddamn
segment,
question.
You each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say.
Why did the
anything you want.
2020 debate end?
I've been
Well,
asked a
you
question
see,
about race, but if you wanna answer about
Biden's
something
son
else,
got
go ahead.
a $3 million
But I
payment,
think that the
something,
country would be better
a bunch
served
of
if we
nepotism
allowed
and
both
blah,
people
blah,
to
blah, blah,
speak
blah.
with fewer
The
interruptions
Democrats will
and
have to
killing
explain that.
absurdity.
That one would probably go in the history
Well,
books.
frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
there's
than,
plenty.
no, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President
I can't stand
Trump's
inconsistencies
response
and I can't
to
stand
the
liars.
violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years?
Because you've
Vice
trusted the
President Biden, you
Democrats
go
for
first.
this long.
It's
What-
about equity,
where have they gotten you?
equality.
Let's
It's
hear
about
from the guy
decency.
that
It's about
that
the Constitution.
headed up
And we have never
the mandatory
walked away from
minimums
trying
legislation
to
in the
require-
90s.
require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America.
Oh
But
my God, dude.
We've never accomplished it, but we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people looked like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
That quote has been taken out of
Now,
context.
Sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what
And
happened?
your
after that?
supporters
The bishop of that
burned
very
that
said
church.
that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk
Yeah.
about helping
Well,
African
you're being
Americans.
controlled by Leninists
1 in
who
1,000
invented
African
critical
Americans
race
has been
theory to
killed
tear this
because of the
country apart.
coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the
And
end
it
of the year,
seems like
1 in 500
racial
will have been
tensions
killed.
are
1 in
worse
500 African
than they've ever
Americans.
been.
This man is
And
the,
it's
is the
terrifying.
savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to
Trump
look at
could-
what he talks
I guess
about.
could do more.
You have to look at
But
what he
actually,
did.
if
And
you-
what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
You've got to get away from
So,
the Democratic media
President Trump,
and
you
the
have 2
liberal
minutes.
media
Why
because
should
you will never
Americans
hear
trust
anything
you
about what
over
Trump
your
and his
opponent to deal with
administration
racism?
actually
Crime
do.
Bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've
Yeah,
never
no, that is
forgotten it,
true.
Jeff.
No, no, sir. It's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black
Do you
community
know how
about
much,
as
like,
bad
how-
as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals. Total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group.
It's like
in the United
99%.
States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even
The
say
smug
the
look
word law
on Biden's
enforcement, because
face
if you
is
say those words,
unbelievable.
you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, no, he created it.
Systemic injustice
He created
in
it.
this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in
unbelievable.
which it's enforced. But look,
To hear
the
this
vast
guy
majority of
who
police
authored
officers
the
are good,
mandatory
decent,
minimums
honorable
bill
men and women. They risk their lives
to
every day
curry
take care
political
of us.
points.
But there are some bad apples, and when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers to police
I'm sure
chiefs.
that'll go real
And we're going
well.
to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town
President Trump,
and burn down your
President Trump,
stores and kill people
President
all over
Trump,
the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful
protest?
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not, but
asking-
you say it is.
I did
President
not
Trump,
say
I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment.
Biden is such a
This
smug.
month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
Is radical,
and he would know.
What is
it was
radical
totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity training?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And, and really, they were teaching
using
people
hypnosis
to hate our
and
country.
covert
And I'm not going to
NLP
do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back
and
to the core
gaslighting,
values of this
and
country. They were
it
teaching
encourages
people that our
transference
country
and
is a horrible
countertransference.
place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching
It makes
people to hate our
everything
country.
worse.
And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President
It
Biden?
makes everything
Nobody's
way
doing
worse.
that. He's
Oh,
the
you-
racist.
you just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
You
this
don't
than he
know.
does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't.
So
want to.
why
Many
are the
people
liberal
don't wanna
media
hurt other people's feelings? But it's amazing. It
essentially
makes a big difference.
brainwashing people
It makes a
and
gigantic
conditioning
difference
people
in
with
the way a
triggers?
child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism
Vice
in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama
It's
Biden
the economy,
administration,
stupid.
there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson. You look at you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but the
Lord.
reason
This
is
is
that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these
Absolutely
cities
ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow.
He's
you
in
in
favor
favor
of
of
whatever he
law and
thinks he
order?
has to
Yes,
say
You
to
asked a question,
be
let him
president.
Law
finish.
and order.
Loses
Law and order.
Let him.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter
I don't
is,
even know
violent
why you
crime
wanna
went
be
down
president, buddy.
17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down
He-
much more
he
than
had-
ours.
All right, we're
He
now.
is
You're,
president of
Mr.
the
President,
United
you're going
States
to.
of America.
We
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And
we're
the
now going to
places
talk
we
about
And
law and order.
Kamala
We're in
Harris
trouble
must
with
have
Democratic
Joe
run
Biden on one
cities.
hell of a
That's exactly
fucking.
my question. There has been a
fucking
dramatic
leash,
increase
'cause
in homicides in America.
He seems pussy-whipped,
this
honestly.
summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It
Republican
is
cities.
crazy what's going on.
What?
And he doesn't
Chicago's
say
a
law
what?
and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have
We would
our
run it
suburbs
the
would
way-
be gone. By the way,
Suburbs.
our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've
He
never
wouldn't
seen.
know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was,
better.
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car.
Man, I didn't
as there
know what a
have
dog
been
whistle
any time
was
in
until,
the
like,
past. What really is a
2015,
threat to the
2017,
suburbs and their
2018.
safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and
It
do
means
you
police do
support
their
the Black
do their
Lives
jobs
Matter
with their own fucking handcuffs on.
call for community control of policing?
Oh shit!
look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding in his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what
in
they're
prevention.
talking about,
That's-
Chris. That's
well,
not what
that-
they're
that's
He's talking
exactly-
about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law
Would you-
support.
look,
He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
not. Look,
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one
Yeah,
group that
exactly,
supports
Judge. You
Name
walked
one
right
group
into that
came
one,
out
didn't
and
you?
Supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
we don't have time to do
No, no,
anything.
think
except
about
listen.
it.
Look,
Name
folks,
one law enforcement group that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role,
think there
and
are any.
I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days
I
of
mean, if
protests.
Joe Biden's gonna
which
walk
I think
into
you
that,
agree, you talk
like-
about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President,
How the hell is he supposed to
you
negotiate
say
with the
that
Chinese?
people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you'd stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted. And anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people,
He's never
the
said
leader, excuse me, sir, you had never
The
called
leader
for
in
the
name
leaders
only
in
is
Portland
not a
and
leader.
in Oregon to call
Because
it, bring in
they-
the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here,
Oh, really?
here's the
But
thing.
no,
I
that-
sent
sir,
in
no,
the
wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals to
question.
get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and
Right.
for 3
Mr.
days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I
please
had to send
interrupt
in the
and-
U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
Go ahead,
And,
sir.
and by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said
No,
that.
no, no.
I
They
do.
they hurt the Democrats.
I think
We want you to
Kellyanne
stop.
Conway.
We would love
that.
we would
And
love
so
for
here's
you
the-
to stop.
But here's the point.
Go
The
ahead,
point
sir.
is that that's what he keeps trying to rile.
It really
everyone
is
up.
just so
He
sad
doesn't
what
want
has
to calm
happened to the
things down.
Democrats.
Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And-
every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this button
So
up
what-
this segment,
so
I'm going
what
to give you a
should
minute to
Trump
answer,
have
sir.
done?
You have repeatedly
Wait, I
criticized.
have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have.
Whenever
repeatedly-
one of
you have
these
no, you've been talking.
police
made a
shootings
statement.
happen,
I'm
I
asking
get
you
the
to
feeling
let
that the
me
last
answer.
people that
I'd love to-
African Americans
you know,
would
if you
like
wanna
to
switch
hear
seats,
from is
We can
Donald
very
Trump.
quickly-
We can do that, but I'm
The
saying
fuck is
The
he supposed to
National Guard
say?
would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw
That's
in
a
Kenosha
leading question,
and as
buddy.
we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared to
do that,
specifically
but
do it?
Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say, I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from
Yeah.
the right
So
wing.
what are you?
Yeah,
what are you
exactly.
What are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
He just
wanna call him?
designated
What do you wanna
Antifa
call
and
him? Give me a name.
KKK
Give me a
as
White
name. Go
supremacists
ahead.
and
Who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a
the threat
left-wing
of
problem.
white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
you gotta be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what
Oh, really?
his
It's an idea.
FBI,
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna-
you know what?
No,
He's
no, we're
wrong.
done. We're done, sir. We're
Everybody-
moving on to the next.
everybody-
we're
Moving on? What the
That's
fuck?
that's not an
You can't
idea.
just move on from
Everybody
that.
in your
Is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas that are
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president
Yeah, they
seeks a
will.
second term,
They will.
it is generally a referendum on his record.
Leninists and
But Vice
Marxists
President Biden, you'd like to
always
quote one of your dad's
eliminate almost
sayings,
all of the
which is,
useful
"Don't
idiots.
compare me to the
Why would you
almighty,
want,
compare
after you
me
get a
to the
revolution, why would you
alternative."
want
And in this
a
case,
useful
sir,
idiot?
You are the alternative.
You used them.
Looking
They will be
at
mad
both
that
of your
you used
records, I'm
them.
going to ask
They will
each of
be
you,
angry that you
why
used them
should
to bring down their
voters elect
country.
You, president,
You eliminate
over your
the useful
opponent?
idiots.
In this segment, President Trump, you go first. 2 minutes.
Because
They
there
will
has
never be loyal
been
to you.
An administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite
Trump
going through
designated
all of these
Antifa
things, where I had to
KKK
fight
as
both
terrorist
flanks and
organizations.
behind me and,
Shit's
and
great.
above, there
That
has never been an
fucking debate question
administration
that didn't even
that's
make
done what
sense.
I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. He was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
Fine, sir.
300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump?
this
You have 2
president-
minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was
Have you looked
Vice
at the Dow
President,
Jones,
we
everybody?
inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with
Wow.
Putin and made it
The
clear to him we're
Republicans
not
and
going to
Democrats
take any
work
of his
together
stuff.
very hard
He's
to
Putin's
create
puppy.
a
He still
recession.
refuses to even say anything to Putin about
For
the
like
bounty
30
on the
years.
heads of American soldiers.
Your son got
And-
$3.5
No.
million.
Not sure.
Mi-
And
Mr.
by the way,
President-
my son.
wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add
No,
back
He's
I'm
a
not
person
asking.
that's
That was a
not-
rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy.
Keep talking if
by
you
a
want
tune
to,
of
Joe,
over
but
$300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United
What about
States.
Democrat
It's
cities?
on his watch. And
They
with
got
regard
worse
to
in Democratic
more
cities,
divided,
didn't they?
the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there.
Joe,
He got. He
you
got
would
the
get
Bronze
so
Star.
many
He
people
got the
killed.
Conspicuous Service Medal. He was
Oh
not a
my
loser.
God.
He was a patriot, and the people left behind there
my
were
God.
heroes. And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're
I
talking
don't know.
about.
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah, you
Hunter
know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
For
wasn't dishonorably
cocaine
discharged.
use, and he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine.
What do you mean none of
in
it's true?
China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
Oh my
He
God,
made a
dude.
fortune,
My son.
and he didn't have a job.
Biden would
son,
get so many
like
people
a lot
killed.
of people, like a lot of people we know
By
at home.
pulling back, we
had
need
a drug
deterrence.
problem. He's overtaken it.
If you're gonna have deterrence, in order for the deterrence work, you need credibility.
But why was he
And,
given
uh,
tens of millions
All
of
right.
But
dollars?
he wasn't given
All right.
tens of
He
millions
was
of dollars.
given
That is
tens of
totally,
millions of
that's been
dollars.
totally
Tilt it up.
discredited.
Credibility in
It's
four
already been
seconds?
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think
guess
the
I don't
American
know.
people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make
I know,
a
but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5
Oh.
million
Okay,
dollars
right.
from the
Biden
mayor
brought it
of
up.
Moscow,
That
talk
is
about-
not
I think
true.
it's a
Gentlemen,
That
terrible thing.
report is totally
Why did he get it?
discredited.
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
you
Oh,
know,
he's running with it.
I'd like to talk about
He's
climate
trying to segue
change.
to something else real fast.
The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't
I
put
guess
out
it's
of
3 right
commission.
here.
If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do you
exciting.
believe
for a lot
that,
of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
this
think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's
of
burning.
course
If that was
it
clean,
contributes.
if you had forest
climate
management,
change.
good forest
You know what else
management,
contributes to climate
you wouldn't be
change?
getting those
China.
calls. You know, in
You know who
Europe, they live, they have
overfishes and
forest
pollutes
cities.
the
They're called
oceans, and pollutes
forest
the
cities.
airs, pollutes
They
the skies?
maintain their forests. They
China.
manage their forests. I was with the head of a major
I mean,
country.
I
It's a
don't
forest
understand
city.
hippies.
He said, "Sir,
I mean,
we
if you
have
give a shit about the
trees that are
environment-
far more. They ignite much easier than
Why
California.
do you not
there
call
shouldn't be
China
that
out?
problem." I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some
China doesn't
point,
like if you let China
you
take
can't
charge.
every
I mean,
year
they're not
have
going to give a shit about
hundreds
the
of
environment.
thousands
They're
of
Marxists.
acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But, sir,
management.
if you believe in the science
Marxists
of climate
reshape
change,
the material
why
world
have you
to
rolled
meet
back
their
the
ideology. They don't give a
Clean
shit
Power
about
Plan,
the
which
the
limited
environment.
carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If
Yeah.
you did that, the car would be safer. it would be
Economics
much
is real.
cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No, but you
ignored
would take a lot of
your
cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. the car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And, and I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm
Joe,
all
you
for
want to open
electric
your mouth?
cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two,
Joe,
during our
first of all,
administration, the
Joe,
Recovery Act,
nobody's
I
going to
was
be voting
able
against
to
their
charge
fucking
able to
Robin
bring
Hood.
down the cost of
Nobody's going to vote against their
renewable
weeble,
energy to
dude.
cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they,
General
in
Electric.
fact, are
I
weatherized
remember
in a
General
way that, in
Electric.
fact,
They were like a company for
they'll emit
130
significantly less
years.
gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many
And
things
now they're
that
on
we
life
can do
support
now
because of the
to
Democrats.
create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating jobs.
How are we going to do that
Creating
without an
millions
economy,
of
Joe?
good-paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, makes sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. You know, that's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're
not
going
the case.
All right, let me
destroy our
because I
country.
actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
Coming from where, Joe? Coming from the government? So we're gonna fund all that with the deficit. Is that right?
And these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
He did say
you made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble.
Yeah,
Look
and
what's
we're-
happening
that's
just
still
in the
gonna
Midwest
happen.
with these storms that come through and wipe out entire
No, Joe,
sections and
we need
counties in
engineering
Iowa.
projects
That
on
didn't
the
happen
scale,
before. They're
like,
because of global
on a scale
warming.
which
We
nobody
make
has
up
ever
15%
imagined
of
before.
the world's
We need
problem.
engineering
in fact,
projects
but
that
the
will
rest of the world, we got to get them to come
rehydrate
along.
the
That's what we
Sahara
have to get
Desert,
back into.
that will use nuclear
the
power
Paris
to
Accord.
desalinate
All right,
water
gentlemen,
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he
and
do it for 47
extract
years? You were
minerals from
vice
seawater
president. Why didn't you get the
and
world?
rehydrate
China
the Sahara
sends up
so it
real
can be
dirt into
irrigated, so
the
we can
air.
increase
Russia does,
the
India
total
does, they all
maximum
do.
food production
We're
on
supposed
Earth.
to be good. And
We
by the
need
way,
we need
he
to
made a
lower
couple
the
of
sea level.
statements. The Green New Deal is
Like,
$100 trillion.
holy
That's not
shit.
my plan.
That's
And that's
well,
the sea level will not increase.
my plan.
The sea
People
level
that
will
knew anything
decrease
about it.
because
If he knew
Gentlemen,
He
anything
made a
about
statement
Gentlemen.
about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What-
not
But you know who
fair.
did?
You're done in this segment.
He called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
And he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said
Mr.
stupid
please.
bastards.
Oh my God!
I would never
I
say
would
that.
Play it.
Stop.
Play it.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings. was the final question.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy. The
I mean,
He
the
could
Green New
just-
Deal and
Joe
the
Biden
idea
could
of
just say whatever the
your
fuck he wants.
environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. You're not going to build plant. The words of a president matter significantly.
I have incredibly good judgment. One, I married Jill. And two, I appointed John Johnson to the Academy. I just want you to know that. Just clap for that, you stupid bastard.
The words of a president matter significantly.
Clap for that, you stupid bastards.
Be a fair election, and what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote.
店内
His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a
Midnight.
source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida.
Messi.
Number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those
Kasi.
people who want to vote in
Age.
person are able to vote because there are enough poll watchers
店
there
内
to make sure they
温め
can socially
レシー
distance.
トはよろ
Polls
しい
are
です
open
か
on time, and their polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way
黒
for you. Because he cannot stop you
歌詞
from being able to
店
determine
内
the outcome of this election.
飯
And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted,
店
and they're
内
all
で召し上が
counted,
りますか
that will be accepted. If I
Okay,
win,
I'll stop
that
in a
will be
second.
accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? Or you get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won. From the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady, they were a disaster.
don't have it down
They
the
were a
arrow key,
disgrace
so
to
I
our
can't-
country.
can't
And we've
do it.
caught them. We've caught them all. We've got
great.
it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are
that-
concerned, it's a
That's
disaster.
that's unbelievable.
A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's
Yeah,
nice. on
it's a
November
clusterfuck,
3rd, you're
and we all
watching
know it's
and you
coming.
see who won the election, and I think we're going to do well because
Everybody
people
can see
are
it
really
coming.
happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
Sir,
all run by
2
Democrats.
minutes is 2 minutes.
All
You're-
run by
you're-
Democrats. It's
President
a fraud.
Trump,
It's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett,
EG ratings,
to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I don't think I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what are
They
you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
If there
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now,
do
what
is
are
you
gonna
go
do?
and vote. You do a solicited ballot,
No,
and that's
I'm not-
okay,
I know
or
you're
you go and
complaining.
vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
You go
have
and
received-
vote. You go and
No,
vote
but
like
what I'm
they
saying is, what are
like
you
they
gonna do
used
about
to
the
in
fact
the
that
old.
millions of people?
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see
What about
what's
a
going on?
blockchain
Take a
app?
look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no.
This is not.
There is no.
This is
evidence
not
of
going to
that.
end well.
There is
Okay.
no
Of what,
evidence
Joe?
Not going
Vice
to
President
end well.
Biden.
5 states
fact,
have had
go ahead,
mail-in
sir.
ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states.
There's no
And
evidence
you
of
don't
what?
have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What we're saying is, they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because
You're
he knows
wrong.
the outcome.
You're wrong.
No,
I love
I
counting
want to
votes.
continue with you on this.
I mean,
this
Vice
is a
President Biden,
clusterfuck.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes
in
a
fact,
statement
no.
like that.
Yeah, no, he's not wrong. He's a liar.
Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed
be fraud.
the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the
Look at
deal.
this. Look at this.
When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for,
That's your
testify,
mom's ass.
say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you
I
have
a final,
80 million ballots
gentlemen, I have a final
sent in
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already
All
there's
right,
been
so now
fraud.
Mail service
Final-
delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen, in the
185
final
million
question
pieces of
is,
mail a day.
in
80
8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking.
It's
in
a-
8
it's a
states,
disgrace.
election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and
Yes.
flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting,
Surprise.
that we are not going to know on election night who
That's
the
when-
winner
that's
is.
when
That it
Biden
could be
accused the
days, it
list.
could be weeks,
Could be months.
until we find out who the new president is. So
Yeah.
first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your
I wouldn't bet on it.
supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest, and will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you
I'm
go first.
urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell
what-
you
what
what,
does that
from
mean,
a
not go
common
along?
sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're gonna
tell you
tell
what
your
it means.
people to take to
It
the
means you
street?
have a fraudulent election. You're
And what are
sending
you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do
They're
about
not.
that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two.
Okay.
They cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket
Fire
3
sale
days ago,
Democrats.
and they all had the
Fire
name
sale-
military ballots. They
Fire
were
sale
military.
votes.
They all had the
Democrats
name
get
Trump
2 for
on them.
1.
Vice President
think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. They count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots. That somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established.
It's-
Take a look at
No,
Carolyn Maloney's
I
race
asked
and then
you had an opportunity
Look
to
at
respond.
Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me,
Past, present,
in
future.
fact, fine. If it's not me,
Confusing
I'll
because
support
it's
the outcome, and I'll be a president not
president,
just
past,
for the
future.
Democrats. I'll be a
For
president for
Biden.
Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want
if
to
in
see an
fact,
honest
Okay,
ballot cut.
gentlemen,
We-
you say that's the end of it?
Chris,
This is the
I
end
wanna
of this
see an
debate?
honest ballot count.
It looks like
We're gonna
Biden's
leave
going
it
to be
there. To
running
be
into a problem with the
continued
Hierophant.
in more debates as we go on. President Trump,
in the future.
Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates.
looks
that
like
you have agreed
society is gonna
engage in.
maintain
We
its
want to
norms,
thank Case
which
Western
is good
Reserve
'cause,
University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission
If
on
Biden,
Presidential
if Biden
Debates,
was to win,
will be 1
the
week
economy will
from
collapse.
tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until
I
then,
guess the
thank
King of
you
Wands is really is
and good
Trump.
night.
He's on fire.
Thank you.
Dude. Holy shit. Alright. Oh, I gotta do this again. voting for Trump. Present. Past. Future. Looks like he's juggling a lot right now. That makes sense. He's had some heartbreak in the past, in the recent past. I don't know. He's had to overcome some conflicts with the government. I can't really imagine this applying to actual love life. In the future, because this can be about strength, about doing the right thing, about having true strength. Apparently there's no inversions on this app, so.
And now, after the first debate of 2020, it's time to hear your voices and get your views on what you just witnessed in the last 90 minutes. 202 is the area code. For those of you supporting President Trump, dial in at 748-8920. If you support former Vice President Biden, 202-748-8921. All
Alright, I'll
others,
start
if
an
you are
stream for this.
undecided, 202